What's up, Mecha fans, and welcome back to the channel. So, 2024, not the greatest year for mecha video games. The only one that I can really think of off the top of my head is Gundam Breaker 4. Aside from that, can't really name any of them. 2025, though, is already looking to be a stacked year for mecha games. Some of these don't have release dates, but they are estimated for 2025, but we have 7 in total to talk about within this video, releasing in the first half of the year. But before we dive into them, please do leave a like on this video and subscribe if you are a fan of mecha anime content and want to see plenty more videos like this in the future. Also, head on down to the comments section below, let me know your most anticipated of these that we are about to talk about. So I'm going to run through these in release order, starting out with SYNDUALITY Echo of Ada, which is releasing this week, 23rd of January. So for those that don't know what this is, it is an online extraction shooter based off the SYNDUALITY franchise. For those that haven't seen SYNDUALITY Noir, first off, go watch it. I think it's a heavily underrated series, and if you want something unique within the mecha genre that has an interesting world, definitely go check that out. But this is based off that franchise, that world, if you will, a bit of a spin-off of that series, and there's a campaign to it, or like a story mode, but there's also like online multiplayer kind of extraction stuff. I thought it was decent. I think there's a good basis for it, but I think there's improvement that's needed. I don't know if they've made those improvements for the final release. The thing that excites me most about this game, though, is the story mode, which is going to be heavily focused around the fall of Amasia. For those that have seen SYNDUALITY Noir, that is a major part of the story there, but it's also a major part of the world building, and they dive into it a little bit within the series, but they kind of leave it open for more to be explored. There's enough explored in the series for you to get a decent idea, but there's a lot more depth to it by the sounds of it, and there's like a lot more that can be explored. And they've basically made the promise of that's what this game is going to do. It's also going to be focused on Albert and Ada, both characters that were introduced in SYNDUALITY Noir, basically set up to be kind of the lead characters within the story mode of this. And those two characters were one of the best parts, really, of SYNDUALITY Noir, one of the most interesting duos, so I'm very excited to dive into their backstory. And that's the main reason I am excited for SYNDUALITY Echo of Ada. I don't expect it to be an amazing game, but it's also not full priced. You can get it for like £40 or £35, depending on where you buy it from. So for that reason, I'm interested in this game. I don't have all the faith in the world in it, but I'm hoping it at least delivers on the story mode. Next up, this comes from another mecha franchise, one that is definitely more popular than SYNDUALITY, and that is MACROSS Shooting Insight. Now, the release strategy for this game has been weird. I think it released in Japan back in 2023. It's released on Steam, I believe, like earlier in 2024 for like UK, US, international people, and then it was supposed to release in December, I believe, for, most other areas and like physical releases and all this kind of stuff, and then it got delayed. So now it's releasing on the 7th of February of this year on digital, and then the physical release, it's not confirmed, but I'm sure I saw somewhere that it was releasing in March of 2025. I'm personally probably going to wait for that physical release because I just prefer to have physical releases anyway. But as for what MACROSS Shooting Insight is, it's a multi-dimensional shooter. So there's almost like 3 ways that you will play certain bits. Space Invaders, typical style where it's kind of moving upwards. You got the side-scrolling bit, and then you've got the more 3D bit, more like a Star Fox type game. So that's kind of what MACROSS Shooting Insight is. There's kind of elements of, singing and pop idols and that put into it, like in the way that Macross does have that as a major part of the franchise. So again, much like with SYNDUALITY Echo of Ada, I'm not expecting amazing things from this game, but I am at least interested to play it. I'm hoping that it takes songs from Macross Plus, because that is like all-time great in terms of music. It's the only Macross thing I'm seeing, so that's why I'm talking about it. But again, it's one of those things based off a franchise. It's probably not the greatest game ever, but for those that are fans of the franchise, they might get something out of it. Stories from Soul the Gundog releases on February 20th, 2025, so later in the month. And I've played the demo for this, and I gotta say, like, out of everything I've played in terms of mecha games coming this year, this is probably the one that interests me and intrigues me the most. It is basically a visual novel inspired by classic sci-fi, whether that's classic sci-fi movies or classic sci-fi anime. I think the directors, or like the studio behind it, have cited things like Blade Runner as influence, but also Macross as well. So it's pulling a lot from like real classic sci-fi stuff ranging from the 70s right through to the 90s and maybe early 2000s. And from what I played in that demo, not only is it visually unique, it very much borrows from and kind of recaptures the essence of a very old like SNES game, or even going back further than that. And there are mecha involved in here, a bit more realistic looking, but it's still kind of got a mecha essence to it. So if you haven't already, go play the demo for this, and then you'll kind of get a flavor for what the game's going to be like and whether you enjoy it or not. But for me personally, who has played that demo, I thought it was fantastic. I am very excited to dive into the full game when it releases on February 20th. Now, there's an argument to be made for this next one, and that is Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition. Released back on the Wii U, and, much like a lot of games from that era, it is getting kind of a poor remaster for the Nintendo Switch. It's set to release on the 20th of March 2025 and is of course part of the Xenoblade Chronicles franchise, which is definitely not a mecha franchise by any means. And by definition, I would say that this is not technically a mecha video game. However, there's a mecha on the front cover, there's mecha stuff that's heavily a part of the storyline and the plotline, and also the gameplay. So, whilst it is not 100%, like part of the mecha genre, the fact that it so heavily includes a mecha, both in terms of story and gameplay, which are like the two key components of any video game, I would personally put it on this list. Now, it's up for debate, and, if you guys don't see it as a mecha, that's fair enough, but it still looks like a pretty cool game. For those that want, some mecha, like action RPG elements, then I think that Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition will deliver that. I've never played the original game, so I'm very interested to check this one out, like I said, when it releases on March 20th. We're now moving into the games that don't have definitive dates, starting off with Mecha BREAK, which is actually slated for a spring 2025 release. That's what they said when they released the new trailer back at the Game Awards in December. And this is a fast-paced multiplayer mecha game which features PvP, but it also features PvPvE. I think it's like 3v3 when it comes to the multiplayer. For those that have seen the trailers, all of the images and all that kind of stuff, I think this is universally, in terms of mecha fans, one that people are excited for. It's got the fast-paced action, visually looks pretty cool, and I think it's just delivering the kind of mecha content that a lot of people want for the most part. The design stuff looks great. I think there's some pretty iconic mecha designers that were involved directly with this game. Off the top of my head, I can't remember who it is, but I'm sure I've heard somewhere that some very well-known, very respected, talented individuals and artists within the mecha genre that have created great stuff in the past are working on this game. So that in and of itself, I guess, kind of lends some credit to whether this game will be good or not, or whether it'll be well liked and well received by the fan base. But I think it looks really cool. I want to play it myself because I have a feeling that I will either not be very good at it, or the trailers just look too good. Like the way that the trailers play out, it almost feels too good to be true in terms of the pace and just the general look of the action. But if it can deliver on what the trailers have showcased, this could be a hit. And I think it could be a hit amongst not just mecha fans, but also just people that enjoy multiplayer games and general gamers. So hopefully this can be like, I guess, the new Armored Core, the new Titanfall for this year, where it's going to appeal massively to those mecha fans, but also just your casual gamer as well. Next up, we've got War Robots Frontiers, which I believe is already available on Steam. It's already got some weird wide release, except not really. So this is actually coming to consoles, PS5, maybe PS4, Xbox Series X, all that kind of stuff. And it's supposed to release sometime in early 2025. There's no kind of season or month or anything like that. They've just said early 2025. Now, to me, that could range up to like April. Like, that's what I would class as early. So I'm kind of thinking a Q1 situation. But this is a 6v6 multiplayer shooter, which I have played the beta for. And I gotta be honest, I really, really like this game. Typical third-person shooting mechanics and that. But what I love most about it is that it's very much heavy machinery. It's the kind of bipedal mecha that, don't actually have arms. It's basically just like a tank thing on legs, if you will. But it feels like that, The movements of it feel quite slow. You're limited in terms of how much boost you've got. But it actually works for the type of thing that it is, and it's a far more tactical game than something like, I don't know, Mecha BREAK will be, which I'm sure will have its tactical moments, but because it's so fast-paced and so action-oriented, it's not the same kind of slow-paced tacticalness that you will have in something like War Robots Frontiers. And from what I played of it, I really enjoyed it. I think it seems to have like pretty deep customization to it, which I never really dived properly into, but I'm very excited to dive into that more in the full game. This is one that I'm definitely interested in playing. Fingers crossed that this does actually deliver like an experience that has replayability and has longevity to it, because I really like what I've played, but again, I just hope that it does have that longevity and I will actually continue to enjoy playing it like many hours into it. Last up, and in my opinion probably least, is SD Gundam G Generation Eternal, the only Gundam game on this list which you would think would make it, more exciting to me as someone who really does like Gundam. Any Gundam game coming out would seem like something exciting. The difference here is that this is a mobile game, and it is supposed to release in 2025. There's no official date for it yet, but I don't even know whether it will release in 2025 because it was announced all the way back in either 2021 or 2022, and then essentially went dark until like December of 2024. My faith in it is not very high, but I think with the massive delays, that could mean that they maybe revamped things quite a lot, because the first trailer didn't do anything for me, and that's why I was never really excited for it. The second trailer, or the most recent trailer that released back in December, looked decent. I'm not going to say it looks amazing, but I think visually and graphically, it looks pretty good. Now, it's more of a turn-based, like, hexagonal kind of situation where, every turn is like movements or attacks or things like that. It's not like you can move around freely, and it's also something that does involve movement rather than every turn is either an attack or defense. The gameplay could be an in-depth system, it could be interesting to play, but the big turn-off here is that it's a mobile game, and generally mobile games, especially for free-to-play, are riddled with microtransactions. Also, I don't care much for mobile games. I don't mind playing them from time to time, but they're never really something that excites me. If this was a console game, I would just automatically just be far more inclined and excited by it. But the fact that it's a mobile game, that's an immediate turn off. I just have a bad feeling that this is going to be microtransaction ridden and might not be the greatest game ever because of that. There we have it though. Those are the 7 games that we're expecting to release in 2025 in terms of mecha games. To go over them, once again, we have SYNDUALITY Echo of Ada, MACROSS Shooting Insight, Stories from Soul the Gundog, Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, Mecha BREAK, War Robots Frontiers, and SD Gundam G Generation Eternal. Before I get out of here though, please do leave a like on this video and subscribe if you are a fan of mecha anime content and want to see plenty more videos like this in the future. Also, like I said earlier, head on down to the comment section below. Let me know what 2025 mecha video game you're most excited for out of this list, or were there some that I missed off? Thank you once again for tuning into Mecha Chat today. I'll see you guys next time.